What's up, Zach here, and today I've got the all-new Nike GT Hustle Academy, and I gotta say, these things have me absolutely perplexed. So, let me tell you why. Now, starting off in the uppers, honestly, the uppers to me are such a Jekyll and Hyde. Number one, you've got a pleather reinforcement along the lace line, which is interesting, but then right after that, you've got an entire bed of Flyknit, which is so incredibly light feeling. These shoes are some of the lightest feeling shoes I've had on. They're honestly one of the lightest shoes I've had on, and we'll get into that when we get into the teardown. However, with that light feeling, you would think that you'd be popping out of them. You honestly don't. They don't have a runner's knot in them, but even with that, the heel slippage was pretty mild, which I was very surprised with. The one thing, though, that you do get with that is a very flimsy heel counter, so not a lot of torsional stability to this shoe, especially in the rear foot, and we'll talk about that more when we get into the midsole teardown. The tongue also does have double padding, but it's incredibly kind of wimpy. Number one, it's not gusset, it's just attached to the distal side of it, and then just cutting through it, I mean, my knife just kind of really just shredded it. Really, typically it just have one line. I mean, these ones just kind of absolutely shredded, which was kind of odd. And you look at this thing on the breathability test, you know, like a lot of Nike shoes only heated up 100.4 degrees, and on the breathability mapping, kind of see where the fog was coming out. The Flyknit on these just does an incredible job of handling heat and moisture. If you want a shoe that is just one of the most light and airy and breathable feeling shoes without having real big open pores in them, this really is it. And it's interesting because I had the Luka 3s on one day earlier than I had these on, and my feet were burning up in the Luka 3s. I was in a really hot, humid gym. I did not change my socks, which were a little bit of a thicker sock, put in these, and within a few minutes, my feet felt fine. No problems whatsoever. These things were handling a foot that was already super hot, producing a lot of heat, a lot of moisture, and it still handled it well. So, you know, going from the jump, it's obviously going to do a lot better, right? When you come into the gym or, you know, wherever, and your feet are not, you know, blazing, you know, as it is. So that was really nice thing to see. It's just odd. You know, you get the fake leather, then you get the really nice Flyknit in there, but then, you know, the heel counter is not so stable, but then there's also no heel slippage, you know, the tongue's kind of odd, so there's just a lot going on in the uppers, put it that way. Now the upper durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper, yeah, the burr does start you know, fluffing up the Flyknit. What I noticed, though, is just from me dragging and sliding on these, I'm already starting to wear down the exposed foam, and I was actually getting that Flyknit pretty kind of dirty and worked over already. So, honestly, sliding on anything more than a very slick indoor hardwood court is going to beat these things up really quick. But getting into the midsole teardown, woof, this is just what Nike says is a dual density midsole foam setup. There is no shank on these things. You can definitely tell when you got them on. Now, what I noticed is to feel it, you don't really feel the difference in foams on this. Now, if you look at it under the microscope, that pink foam does appear to be a little bit less dense than the white foam. This does appear to be just a recycled foam. I didn't notice the difference in feeling them or in playing in them, but, you know, the microscope doesn't lie. It definitely looks a little bit more dense on that white foam, so that's what I'm going with. If you look at this setup, though, on the bounce height test, got 31 centimeters in the rear foot, 33 in the forefoot, which is pretty much what we're used to seeing with, you know, Nike Phylon products. So, you know, or Nike EVA products, except for Cushlons, which have been getting, you know, a lot higher in there. The thing is, though, like I said, there's not much foam there, very low to the ground. Number one, the drop in these is really not much at all. And there's really nothing holding this shoe up. So in terms of support or liveliness in this midsole, there really is none to be found because your foot can really just pummel right through it. If you look at the outsole tread of the Hustle Academies, it is just a very gentle radial pattern. And these lines of tread that make up the radial pattern are broken up as well. And then all of them have this micro gridding on them. It all has this micro texturing on these. So you actually do get quite a bit of confident grip as long as the tread is newer, right? And you're not, you know, beating it up. You look at it on the grip test ramp, slipped at 35 degrees, which is kind of middle of the pack. You look at it on, you know, the viewing box, you can kind of see, you know, that micro gridding on there. You can kind of see where all this tread is going with that. And like I said, this is XDR rubber, so the non-XDR version of this will probably be a little bit softer, have a little bit more tack. What I noticed on these is, especially on indoor courts, that micro gridding is really, and like I said, the breakups of these treads are really what give you that confident grip. You saw me on outdoor courts, I was kind of sliding a little bit. My foot was kind of, going out from underneath me because, like I said, the tread is just so narrow. So these really are more of an indoor hardwood or rubberized court type shoe. Now, if you look at this thing on the speed ratio, pretty interesting. Comes in at a 2.96, and that's because the shoe is so light. It only comes in like under 11 ounces for a men's size 11. So, the thing is with that, you're getting basically what you're paying for, right, with the weight. There's nothing to them. So if you're a very light player, then sure, they'll probably be okay as long as you're on a more forgiving court. If you're on an outdoor court, those ground reactive forces are just going to pummel right through that foam and then right back up your leg. So like I said, for very light players on indoor courts, especially while the shoe is new, yeah, they're very light and speedy. And like I say, they feel very light. I mean, it really feels like you have no shoe on whatsoever. So yeah, I mean, in terms of a shoe that gets out of your way, that you really can't feel, yeah, I mean, they're great. The only thing is, you look at this thing on the outsole durability test, 10 seconds highest grit sandpaper. Weird thing is this is XDR rubber, yet the durometer on this is not as high as other Nike XDR rubbers, and got a millimeter of damage on that outsole durability test on these things. I think it's just a product that the tread is so narrow, it's so thin, there's just nothing protecting it, right? There's nothing to share all that friction, right? All that heat that just has to go somewhere. So even with the XDR, like I said, to me, these are indoor shoes. Number one, for the rubber profile, because they do their best work when kept clean and kept kind of newer on indoor courts. But also number two, because the shock from outdoor courts is just going to destroy you in these. And getting into the fit of the Hustle Academy, now, number one, these things only have a 3-degree inflare. They're incredibly straight lasted shoes, which I always appreciate. I like a little bit more of a straighter lasted shoe. However, they come in at 29.4 centimeters in length, which is really long. A width of 9.2 centimeters, and then they have a toe box taper of 29 degrees and a toe box width, pretty standard 10.3 centimeters. So the thing is, like I said, they're long shoes. Now this is, like I said, the XDR version of the shoe, or the EP version of the shoe, so it's going to be a little bit more forgiving than the standard version of it. So a narrow foot, I would say if you are short-toed, I'd be going down a half size. A medium foot, if you don't mind a little bit of breaking, because like I said, the uppers are just so malleable, I'd probably be going down a half size on these. A 2E, I think you just go true to size, and a 4E, I don't know. I mean, I'd probably be going up maybe a half size on these, honestly, because they are so straight. You can break them in. It's just that you might be popping holes in the uppers, so probably up a half size. It's just, if you're short-toed in a 4E, it's a mismatch. Now, speaking of mismatches, my knee has been getting a lot better recently, and I've not been having to tape it a little bit, and then as soon as I put these things on outdoors, I had to start taping again because I feel the shock coming up my legs. So in terms of snake bitten foot, anything shock induced in these shoes really, to me, is a no-go. Even with an orthotic in these, remember, there has to be some solid base for the orthotic to sit on. And yeah, there are straight shoes on a ton of drops, so an orthotic is going to sit pretty flush in these, so that is nice. So if you've got, a more premium orthotic in these, I think then they make a little bit more sense if you want the weight reduction of these. But I just wouldn't be putting a super heavy orthotic in them, like some of these super heavy custom orthotics, because you're going to ruin the best part of the shoe. The uppers are nice and malleable. Like I said, they still lock down okay. I think a bulky orthotic, though, will still introduce heel slippage. But I really think for anything, they need an orthotic, and I'd say it needs to be a little bit more of a premium one that can really kind of handle the stresses of your foot in them, because the shoe is not going to help it out whatsoever. The heel counter is not going to help. There's no shank. The uppers, like I said, are super malleable, so it might want to move around a little bit. So it better be a premium orthotic, and like I said, you better be wanting to use these shoes, like I said, for their intended purpose, for a very just super light shoe that you're going to be using on indoor courts, and take advantage of that gridded rubber. And getting into the playability of these, honestly, I was glad I got the EP version of these, because even with that outsole, durability profile on them, I wouldn't want to get the standard like non-XDR rubber on these, because honestly, I think the best part of the shoe would wear down so quickly, right? The shoe's going to wear down quick as it is, unless you're a little bit of a lighter player. But, honestly, I was kind of surprised at the playability of these and the performance, especially in really putting a ton of body weight down on indoor courts and still being able to grab some traction, some confident traction. And like I said, going from the Luka 3s, which, you know, we're kind of heating my feet up a little bit, going into these, no, I wasn't getting the performance. I wasn't getting the pop out of them, right? You know, they weren't doing the things Luka 3 was doing. But they did feel very light and breezy. So honestly, maybe just for a shoot-around shoe, something, you know, just easy for that, I think they're nice. And like I said, if you want that feeling in them, they did give, I said, the best part of the shoe is its grip and is that profile when you're really sticking your foot out there and really trying to push back. Now, stepping back in them is really hard because it's you doing all the work. This shoe is not assisting really with anything. So honestly, you know, you're someone that wants a little more of a low drop shoe, right? More minimalist shoe, then hey, you might really like this, right? You know, maybe for a training shoe or something, compromise between a completely barefoot or minimalist shoe and more of a traditional shoe. So that could help bridge the gap there. And like I said, for a lighter player, pretty strong legs, newer shoe, like I said, they do feel pretty light and speedy. The one thing that I don't understand is, and the thing that's most perplexing to me, is who asked for this? Like, why is this shoe out there? We already have the Academy with, you know, the Nike GT Cut 3. We already have the GT Cut Cross. We have a bunch of these shoes with cheaper foams, no shank, right? You know, those have a little bit more cheaper uppers in them. This upper is actually, to me, this is a more premium type upper. But besides, you know, I mean, the fake layer, that's fine, and then the tongue isn't all that great. But, you know, the fly knit around there, that's what makes the shoe. That's what makes it feel so light. That's what I think does the best parts of the shoe. So I'm wondering, like, where Nike is, like where's the end game here with all these, right? Like, why do we have a Nike GT Cut 3 Academy or GT Cut Academy, GT Cut Cross, now a GT Hustle Academy? You know, when, to me, like, the Nike GT Hustle 3 is more or less the Nike GT Jump 2 Academy, right? Like, that should be the Nike GT Jump Academy, because that shoe is a lot like the Nike GT Jump 2, just doesn't have the stronger jump frame on it, right? So you want a softer GT Jump 2 or GT Jump, that's your shoe. So to me, the Hustle 3 is almost kind of like an Academy shoe. Where does this fit? Like I said, I'm not sure who was banging down Nike's door to get this. That's why I'm just kind of so confused, as, you know, I think we could have gotten something a little bit different, or maybe something a little bit more innovative versus this, which, like I said, the uppers are great. This just seems, I don't know. It's weird. Like I said, who is asking for this? I'd love to know in the comments down below if you're one of them. If you are someone that's really been clamoring for something like this, I'd love to know your opinion and why. I'm not being facetious. I genuinely want to know. And if you're a Nike engineer, in the comments, or, you know, email me or DM me or whatever, like I said, not being sarcastic, I really would love to know kind of what the impetus for this kind of current line, like I said, the GT Cut Cross, GT Cut Academy, and now the Hustle Academy. I just love to know what the impetus for that was. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below, obviously. And like I said, if you do want to see a shoe like I was talking about that was wearing, you know, around the very similar time, the Jordan Luka 3, which, you know, in contrast to this, had support and stability and everything in spades. Make sure you click into this video up above and subscribe down below. Respect, rubber, and foam. I'll see you somewhere in the Sneakerverse.